千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. Here is the idea. The more you and I learn about the universe through science and technology, but filter through the perspective of the Tao, the more we see the unifying connectedness of everything. We see the connectedness in the many ways that the micro reflects the macro. The very small reflects the very big. The personal reflects the cosmic, and vice versa. The big reflects the small as well. I'm showing this image here of a galaxy full of stars. It is because you may have heard of the term star stuff. You may have heard that you and I and everyone else is made up of star stuff. What does that mean? In the early universe, more than 10 billion years ago, everything was mostly made up of hydrogen atoms. There are multiple lines of converging evidence, like the cosmic microwave background, that tell us that in the early universe, shortly after the Big Bang, elements like carbon and oxygen did not exist. Mostly, the universe had just hydrogen. This was bad news for life and living things. For us, we could not exist back then. You and I are made up of carbon. You may have heard that human beings are carbon-based life forms. And we need oxygen to live. We need carbon to exist. We need oxygen to survive. These elements simply were not there, not present, did not exist. Then hydrogens formed stars in the early universe. Within those stars, gravitational pull, producing hydrogen atoms going through nuclear fusion. The stars burn brightly. Within those stars, the nuclear fusion of the stars created heavier elements, helium, then carbon, then oxygen. These elements within the stars were the essential ingredients for what will become life, and they were all forged within the star furnace. When the star reached the end of its life, it would go supernova. This will be an explosion that scatters all the created elements inside of it, spreading the carbon and oxygen elements throughout the universe. Now, heavier elements eventually will produce planets, and the planets, some of them, will produce life. That's where you and I come in. Some of the life gained sentience and intelligence on a planet called Earth. So this is why scientists say you and I are made of star stuff. It is because every molecule in you existed inside a star billions of years ago. This is true of everyone. Everything we are made of used to live inside stars. That means our connection to the stars is not just poetic or philosophical. Literally, it is a direct lineage that can be traced back in time. And the same physical laws that govern the stars themselves apply to us the same way. Or in other words, the Tao of the stars and the Tao of you is in reality the same Tao, the unified Tao Axiom. And this is not the only way that we can see the direct connection. So looking at the same galaxy, but in a smaller frame, this is what we see a lot of when we look up at the night sky, when astronomers look through telescopes. We see galaxies. Many of them, including our own Milky Way galaxy, are in the form of spiral galaxies like this one. This spiral pattern is one that we can readily recognize because you and I have the same pattern right on our fingertips. Everybody has fingerprints. All fingerprints have the same spiral pattern. Therefore, it is literally true that we all carry the fingerprints of creation with us at all times. The spiral patterns that we carry around, sometimes we use them for identification purposes as we go through life, but more than that, they authenticate us as citizens of this universe. There's more. When scientists zoom out from galaxies to the largest scale possible, they can examine the distribution of matter throughout the universe. So they create an image to demonstrate their understanding. This results in a different kind of image, not a spiral pattern, completely unlike the spiral pattern of the galaxies, but no less fascinating. You can see their tendrils reaching out from one galactic cluster to another, forming these tenuous connections among them. It seems familiar, and it should, because it looks just like the image of neurons in the brain. Those connections among our brain cells are the neural links. You're basically looking at the neural network of your mind. This is, of course, natural intelligence and not the neural network of artificial intelligence. So not only do you have the imprint of the galaxies on your fingers, now as you can see, you also have a reflection of the universe in your mind. So in a real sense, every person is a universe unto itself. Or we can say the universe exists in you just as you exist in the universe. And this brings us back to the Tao Axiom, the one Tao through all levels of existence, from the macro to the micro. So then the question becomes, the ancients did not have our science and technology, so how were they able to see the connections of the Tao in all levels of existence? The answer is that there were many things that the ancients could observe to discern the oneness of the Tao, or the Tao Axiom. They began with the Tao of heaven. This is also called the heavenly Tao. It is also known as the Tao of nature or nature itself. This includes everything, good and bad, positive and negative, life and death, absolutely everything. The Tao of Heaven has good weather, bad weather. There's sunny days, rainy days, just absolutely everything. There's the daytime, there's the nighttime. There's the sun, there's the moon, there's the stars. Then the ancients turned their gaze around them to observe people, the Tao of people. This level of the Tao is about society, the interaction of people, the role of a ruler ruling the kingdom or empire, looking after all the people. A wise king will try to understand the Tao so he can become more effective to bring benefits to the kingdom and its people. Not all kings were wise, of course. Same with people. Unlike the myriad things, the living creatures, the animals, people are different in being able to make decisions. They think for themselves. They make choices for themselves. We reflect the Tao in that if we move in alignment with the Tao, we get excellent results. If we move against it and engage in things like contention, violence, hatred, we end up with failures. Both excellence and failures are part of the Tao. As I said, the Tao of Heaven, there's good weather, there's bad weather. The Tao itself is impartial. It does not care what choices you make. And that's the theme of the Tao Axiom. Do whatever you like. The principle remains constant. It hands out consequences, positive and negative. It has no emotions, no regrets. Knowing this, we move to the Tao of the individual. In the Tao Te Ching, the Tao of the sage. So when a particular person among the people figures out the connection between heaven and people, the Tao Axiom governing all, that person may decide to align with the heavenly Tao, with the positive aspect of it, to begin a personal transformation toward sagehood. So at this level, the Tao is very much about the individual, you as the ruler of your life. Your life is your little corner of the entire world. This is about your mind, your body, and spirit. The thoughts, ideas, concepts, learning in your mind, health and fitness of your body, the cultivation of your spirit, the growth, development of your soul. The wise person, like the wise king, will try to understand the Tao in order to have a better journey through life. So the Tao Axiom runs through all of them. There is a consistent overall principle through all of the above, so that every level reflects every other level. This, by the way, the Tao Axiom, is how we can be so confident that with the Tao Te Ching, Laozi isn't just addressing royalty, like kings and emperors. He's not just addressing them to advise them on how to rule. This is how we know for sure. Laozi is directly addressing us, you and me, because we cannot be away from being a reflection of the Tao. So there are many examples of how Lao Tzu himself thought about this. This is the Tao Axiom, the one principle through all levels of existence. I'll give you a couple of examples. In Tao Te Ching Chapter 77, it says the Tao of Heaven reduces the excessive and adds to the lacking, meaning the Tao of Heaven is a balancing mechanism. Everything evens out in the long run. Then, chapter 77 goes on to say, the Tao of people is not like that. The reason why Lao Tzu wrote those words is because he observed, even in ancient times, that people jumped on the bandwagon. If something is popular, it becomes more popular. If somebody is downed, disliked, hated, everybody does a pile on. So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The Tao of people who do not know the heavenly Tao, they add to the excessive and they take away from the lacking. So the Tao of sages, looking at this, in chapter 77, it says, well, who can offer their access to the world, become more of a balancing mechanism like the heavenly Tao? Only those who have the Tao. And that's why the sages do what they do. And that's why they achieve without claiming credit, because that's what heavenly Tao does. Another example comes from the very end of the Tao Te Ching, and there are tons of examples. I'm just picking out two of them. In chapter 81 of the Tao Te Ching, it says, the Tao of heaven benefits and does not harm. If you focus on the goodness of life, the fact that you and I are living at all, that we have this opportunity to pick and choose, find the best path for ourselves, it's a great benefit. It's a gift to be alive. The Tao of Sages, it says in 81, follows the Tao of heaven so that the sages are a benefit to the community. It says in 81 that the sages assist and does not contend. So these are the way that the Tao is reflected in different levels. This was how the sages conceptualized the Tao Axiom, connecting everything together in ancient times. So they did pretty well, even though they did not have all the equipment that we have. Now, I want to provide the ultimate example of how one can derive many different concepts from the Tao Axiom and how one can return from the many back to the one. So you have seen examples in modern times, in ancient times, on how the Tao basically runs through everything. It connects everything, links everything together. Everyone who studies the Tao eventually will arrive at that epiphany that you can feel. Such was the case for another ancient sage, Confucius. Now, Confucian teachings are sometimes thought of in academia as being opposed to the Tao. In reality, Confucius learned from the Tao. He was a student of Lao Tzu. He too learned the Tao of the ancients. It was equally revered, ancient to him as well as to his teacher, Lao Tzu. So from his studies, his conclusion was, 无道一以贯之. My Tao is the one that goes through all. When he realized the Tao Axiom running through everything, this was the statement that he made. This statement meant the Tao that he was learning and wielding in everyday applications was the Tao of the ancients, was the primary principle that ran through every aspect of his life. And all of these derived from the Tao Axiom. Now, I want to use water as an example. Water, one substance, and yet representing myriad principles of the Tao. What are the principles? Well, let's round up some of them. First, the soft overcomes the hard. Water demonstrates that to be true, water can penetrate through rocks, like the dripping of rocks cutting through stone, the flowing of water cutting canyons into the ground. The soft overcomes the hard. Water also demonstrates the ultimate flexibility. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu wrote that water goes to the left, water goes to the right. It's like a flood. It finds a way. And water nurtures all living things. So this is easy to understand simply by observation. Imagine that you are standing on the bank of a river, observing how the water of the river is feeding the myriad things. The plants or the animals that come to slake their thirst. Water nurtures all living things. These are principles that Tao cultivators seek to emulate. So in everyday reality, Tao cultivators want to use the soft and not the hard. Use the gentle instead of the aggressive. And Tao cultivators want to be flexible in applying the Tao. They keep the goal consistent. The goal can be the same, but the approach can be different. And the principle of nurturing just means that Tao cultivators are kind and practice compassion to others. There's also the principle of non-contention demonstrated by water. Water contends against nothing and no one, and therefore nothing can fight against it. Moving on when it is done. So Lao Tzu observed that when the work of water is done, nurturing all living things by the river, it flows on. It doesn't stick around to claim credit. And water is good at staying in the lowly places, the principle of humility. To be humble, to stay in the low places means having no need to elevate yourself, to become highly visible, to assume a high profile. So there's a lot more to it that Lao Tzu has talked about. Lao Tzu talked about the timing of water in the form of rain or snow. He spoke of the depth of water, like a very deep pool, as a metaphor about having depth of character. He also used the reflection of a placid pool of water, the clarity reflecting its surroundings. That is a metaphor for fidelity. The point is this: all of these different concepts and ideas and principles, they all derive from one substance, water. One idea, water as a symbol for the Tao. Now, the reverse direction is the final thought about this chapter. Just as the Tao gives rise to everything, the Tao Axiom gives rise to all the ideas and teachings and wisdom in the Tao tradition, we can also look at it in the opposite direction and say, because everything originates in the Tao, everything will trace back to the Tao as the ultimate source. All the ideas and teachings that we have talked about, they trace back to the oneness of the Tao Axiom. In the Zen Buddhism tradition, this is the expression: 万法归一, all dharmas return to the one. So this particular phrase, the first two characters literally translated as 10,000 dharmas. The first character, 1, means 10,000. Second character, fa, means dharmas. The 10,000 dharmas mean all the manifestations of the world, meaning everything. It also means all the dharmic teachings of wisdom, all the wisdom. They return to the one because they trace back to the ultimate source. So what is all of this telling us? In the clearest possible way, Lao Tzu and the sages are saying, if we can stay on this one path, not depart from this Tao of the ancients as we go through life and manage our existence, then our world comes into natural alignment where everything is smooth and seamless. Life is good. If we cannot do that, if we stray from this Tao of the ancients, then our world becomes increasingly chaotic. Nothing works. Life becomes full of frustration. This is why we say one can know the ancient beginning. It is called the Tao Axiom. So remember, this ancient beginning, this Tao Axiom, this is the one. Hold on to the one and you win the world. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.